But also, like I said days ago, Mallory not trying in that HOH and being scared to play was stupid. And now look, she's a target. What is up, everybody? I am back to talk about this vet-infested Big Brother 28 house where it's been a rough weekend, where there's been way too much microaggressions and isolations and straight-up prejudice all weekend long. Far more of that than actual gameplay. Lala had to start yesterday by trying to hype Taylor up. I am at least glad that these two have each other, because they're the only ones that give a shit about the other. Because the rest of this house is a bunch of fucking idiots and assholes. But Lala tried to hype Taylor up to not let the other players break her down. Taylor says she's going to get out of this house and never speak of this experience again. And Lala is understanding, but doesn't want her to go home right now. Tries to tell Taylor she has a responsibility to stay. Soon after that, Lala and Melody were getting into it over bacon. Melody did later apologize, I guess, but Melody has none of this energy for the people who have actually wronged her in this game. Let's actually start off with the Karen watch, and then I'll talk about gameplay. After the argument with Taylor the night before, Haley was telling Angela that she thinks Taylor is staying in her pod because Haley wouldn't talk to her. She's also again saying that Lala is being a mean girl to her again. Haley, who has been hateful Haley since this whole terrible season started. Taylor did try and come and talk to them, and she keeps bringing up the fact that when she walks up on people, they stop talking. Angela says that Taylor keeps bringing that up and she already apologized for it. But as Taylor was trying to explain things to Angela, again, this Karen continued to be condescending, didn't want to hear anything as usual, while Taylor tried it with Haley instead, wanting to educate Haley and frankly wanted to talk about microaggressions, but Taylor could tell that it seemed like Haley was not ready to have this conversation. Haley saying she doesn't want a heavy conversation. Taylor said, just know when I talk about it in the DR, and if it becomes a thing, I tried to talk about it with you first. Taylor said, I'm just warning you that it's a heavy conversation. You are going to see it in the DR. It might become a thing later. Haley asked in the real world, and Taylor said, yeah, it sounded like Taylor has been talking to the DR about the way some of these people have been treating her, where the microaggressions are concerned. Now, we did not get to see the second half of this conversation, but during the conversation, Haley kept saying things like, I don't do drama, even though she's the one that inserted herself in the drama between Angela and Taylor in the first place, like the fucking numbskull that she is. But I'm wondering if Taylor's been talking about this in the DR and she wants to talk to Haley, if the edit is about to throw Haley under the bus for the microaggressions in the house. I wouldn't be surprised if Haley takes the fall and the vets and Drew are protected. That would not be surprising at all. Because hateful Haley is a Karen, which I've been calling from jump. But the vets and Drew are worse as a collective for sure. Because with the vets and Drew, it's always like, Taylor is smart. Taylor could win this game. And then days later, she does nothing. She's a horrible representative for this season. Angela's saying she wants to make Taylor's week hellish. Angela's the worst one. This fucking egg-shaped Karen. Last week during Yash's HOH, it was all about watching Taylor, talking about Taylor, how Taylor's running things, how she thinks she's running the game, she's running the show. And now this week it's all about Taylor, it's a social game. You can't play from your pod. And this has been the narrative that the vets are now running with. And it's why I said yesterday that Devens could shove this narrative up his grody asshole. Because for weeks, the vets have been worried about Taylor's game. But now this is the narrative she's not playing. It's bullshit. She does spend a lot of time in her pod. I have talked about that all season too, that she could get out there and do more. But to say that Taylor hasn't been playing when she has been involved with the last two HOHs before this week and making decisions, you can't say that for some of the people in the house who have had zero influence on decision making this entire game. Taylor approached Drew. They had a slight conversation. Taylor apologized for getting into it with Drew the night before when people were going through her stuff because she hid Drew's brush, even though the comb was on her bed. So it's not like she went through Drew's stuff to find the comb. Drew and Barrett have been having these conversations about how it might be time to flip some things. Drew talking about how next week might be the time. Barrett saying that he's going to have a tough time doing it at that point. But to me, it's still all talk and no action from these two, which gets worse in a bit. However, Devens and Dee have been talking about Mallory a lot, putting the target on Mallory this week now. They've come to the decision that Mallory will be the renom, and that if Mallory wins the blockbuster, then Taylor will go. If Taylor or Drew win the blockbuster, then Mallory goes. Dee likes this idea. Dee and Devens say they will tell everyone that Taylor is the target until Mallory reacts from the nomination, and it gives them reasons to target her. Then they will confirm to the others that Mallory is actually the target and use her reaction as the reason. And we will see how the two vet doormats, Drew and Barrett, will take that. Because right now, they did eventually get told that Mallory's going to be the renom. But they are still being told that Taylor is the target, even though Mallory is the overall target for now. I do have in my notes Angela and Devens talking about Haley and Taylor having their argument when Taylor was trying to educate Haley on microaggressions, which also didn't sound like the first time Taylor has been trying to articulate these kinds of things to Haley. Devens talked about how it didn't end well. The last he heard it was a race-based conversation. Angela said no. And then Devens said very uncomfortable. These are two other people in the house that should be having this conversation. But we'll see all the bullshit they spew after the game when they get confronted on the things they've done and said. But like I said, Dee started telling Drew and Barrett about her plans this week. First, she called up Drew to drop a big secret on him, that she made a deal with Yash with the BB bribe to not put her on the block. So Dee is telling Drew and Barrett that the deal is only for her. She is not letting them in, that Yash also has to protect Angela and Devens. And Angela and Devens are, of course, going to go through with this because it's actually better socially for Angela and Devens than Dee, in my opinion. Drew, of course, is worried that if Mallory is on the block, he has more of a chance of going home. Dee is trying to calm those fears. Dee did say to Barrett as well, let Barrett know that Mallory is going up, but that Taylor is the target to try and soften the blow to Barrett, who is close to Mallory. Dee is saying that the big problem would be if Taylor wins the blockbuster. Barrett said, with Drew, you got lucky enough. He saw it as a second chance. If you put up Mallory, that is going to be seen more as maybe she doesn't care about the mosh pit. Dee says, but I don't have any people to put up, and if she won, there wouldn't be a mosh pit either, because Dee is certain that Mallory would take a shot at her, or at least some of the vets, which I do think is true, and Barrett does know this. And even though Barrett has not flat out told Dee this week that Mallory is still throwing out the vets' names, he has been telling Dee stuff like Mallory says she wouldn't put up Yash, she wouldn't put up Lala, while there's only so many people to think that she might put up. Barrett did try to warn Dee that Melody is not going to be very okay with this, but it is what it is. Barrett and Drew are going to go along with it. Melody was telling Drew, you better not be telling the icons the shit that me and Mallory are saying. She hasn't learned her fucking lesson. She's been repeating this shit to Drew for weeks now. Drew has still been giving information to the vets. Melody will never learn. She's been a lost cause this entire game. Now, Drew and Barrett did have this conversation. Barrett did seem actually upset by Dee's decision-making this week. Drew told Barrett, we only have to worry when our alliance members win, which shows you that we are expendable to them. Well, Barrett hasn't had to worry about that, but Drew has. This is now the second time he's been in an alliance where when they have the power, he's on the block. Doesn't change how he plays, though. Drew told Barrett that if he goes home on Dee's HOH, he's going to be pissed. Barrett is also upset if that is a possibility. Allegedly, I can never really tell with Barrett when it comes to Dee because his head is always so far up her ass. But Drew told Barrett that now they have a reason to blow up the alliance. Drew says, remember Dee saying nobody was going up as a pawn from the mosh pit? Barrett says 1 week alliance. Yeah, they are clocking that Dee lied about this alliance last week when it was made, that nobody would go up as a pawn. Well, here she is putting up 2 members of that alliance. Drew says the bright side is that it gives ammo to say that the crossovers are dead. I mean, I'm kind of glad they were at least having this damn conversation. Devens overheard some of it, though. He mostly only heard names, but he played it off like he was pissed, and Drew and Barrett were, of course, scared that he looked pissed, and he was hoping to use this to get Drew or Barrett to tell him more about what they were talking about. Drew ended up going to Dee to say that he thinks Devens is mad at he and Barrett because they were talking about this move from Dee, worried about the icons and if they're bad for us. So Drew is thinking maybe Devens doesn't trust him anymore. Then Dee and Barrett talked about it, and Dee told Barrett that Devens did come up here pissed, and he made a comment, I was in the pool and people didn't know I was there. Drew said, I think he heard us, going, sometimes I feel like the icons are bad for you and me. And I think he didn't like that. Barrett said, I wouldn't like that. And Dee said, I don't like it either. Drew did tell Dee that sometimes he feels expendable to them. And then Devens was talking to the camera, talking about how he did hear some names, but he didn't hear all of it. What he's trying to do is shake them and make them feel like I heard everything so that they tell me what they were saying. Devens later talked about this with Drew and Barrett, and I think Devens did strike fear into them. I mean, it's pretty easy. They're already the vet doormats. On one hand, I think Devens played this very well. But on the other hand, it's like he's playing with total losers. Like, all of this intimidation, all of these scare tactics would have blown up by now with the stronger cast. But Barrett and Drew have been vet bitches this entire damn season. Dee did eventually bring up Mallory to let her know that she's probably going to be the renom, which Mallory did not take very well. She cried. She went to Angela about it. 2 things with Angela and her racial bias. First, Mallory's tears make Angela feel bad, but when Taylor is crying, her tears are totally disregarded, and Angela just always thinks Taylor's just being manipulative. That is all she sees. But also with this dumb round hoe, again, I ask something I've been asking for a week now. How exactly is Angela playing to win the game? How exactly is Angela even trying to win the game? Mallory is one of the few people that Angela has connected with from the start. Now Angela is okay with Mallory going before jury when she could have been a jury vote for Angela if Angela had been watering that plant. So again, it is clear as day that Angela too is just going along with the survivors. But also, like I said days ago, Mallory not trying in that HOH and being scared to play was stupid. And now look, she's a target. When Melody found out that Mallory was going up, she of course was pissed and went to be alone, to be pissy and cry, even scream crying at one point, talking about how she made a stupid mistake and she's so fucking mad. I mean, it's almost like they were warned last week from Yash, Taylor, and Kamu that this exact thing would happen. Wow. So with Mallory and Melody being upset, what did they do all night? Well, they sat in the corner per usual and talked about how mad they are. Melody's still trusting Drew. Mallory's still trusting Barrett. Same old shit. You know, FAP has to stand for 4 absolute pussies because all 4 have been scared to actually play the game. Whether it's Drew and Barrett so scared of the vets or Melody and Mallory just so scared of playing at all, period. Melody was talking about if she does this, I'm sorry, but it's like war. Yeah. All season I've had to sit here, talk about Melody, how she's all talk, no action. It's the same exact thing again. Of course, Drew's advice to Mallory to get off the block is to start a fight with Yash, Lala, and Taylor. That seems to be Drew's only go-to. Let's yell at the minorities. Now, Mallory, I don't think would ever do this. She's scared to play, let alone scared to have this argument. But another thing Drew said, being the disgusting piece of shit that he is, was that if they're going to win the blockbuster, and if he has to, he will tackle Taylor. Yes, Drew now also threatening violence on Taylor after this pattern of the way he's talked about Lala and Taylor, and even Chuck early on, all season long. Barrett did finally tell Drew that the first week he was on the block, on week 3, that the 3 cons actually were kind of wanting Drew out. They seemed happy to get Drew out. Now, Drew talked about how Haley and Kamu all told him the same thing, but Drew's basically like, me and D are good now, so it doesn't matter. Like, how did casting find Drew and Barrett? Like, they had to dig deep to be able to find these 2 people that would have this undying, unwavering loyalty to the vets no matter what the vets do to them. Because no other person in their right fucking mind would do that this season. D has been saying all weekend that the 4 has to be split up. So it's getting to a point that it would make no sense sending Taylor home for D's game specifically. Because if she puts up Mallory and both Drew and Mallory stay, there's nothing real with D and Mallory. Mallory is definitely coming after D. She was already anyway, but now that would certainly be her target. I would consider this a terrible HOH for D if after all of this mess that she's caused, Taylor goes home because she just created more unnecessary mess for herself. D's game is strange to me because I do feel like she's one of few people actively trying to win the game. But she makes some weird decisions sometimes. She creates mess because I think she does thrive in chaos. I don't know if she understands how many times there's a bitter jury on Big Brother, though. Much more times than Survivor. I do still think at this point, obviously, Taylor is going if it's Taylor and Drew left on the block come Thursday. I can see Drew talking himself out of the game with the vets, though. How he plays this week is going to be very telling. Devens is playing this like he is sketched out at D2 and saying D's being selfish. Even though Devens knows that he too is a part of the deal with Yash and Angela is too. But him like going along with Barrett and Drew saying that D is being selfish is good because it's letting Barrett and Drew complain to Devens more about D. Devens could use this information as a way to get Drew out this week, or he could use it in a way to better his game over D's, especially for bitter jury purposes. I think Yash and Taylor will continue to plant seeds trying to get Drew out, but they're not going to be able to do it with Melody and Mallory. So far, Melody is still trusts Drew enough to think that Drew has her best interest, though, so that's a lost cause. Anyway, one last thing I wanted to talk about. Paul, I guess, was on Sunday's episode from Big Brother 18, Big Brother 19. He put up this tweet saying it was so surreal to be back in the Big Brother house. All the house guests were so sweet and excited, but Latrice has had a standout, undeniable, kind energy to her. Her spirit was very friendly, and anyone who thinks otherwise is wrong. I took this tweet as a direct shot at Devens, who just 2 days ago was giving this diatribe cam talk, trying to act like Lala is such a rough person to get to know and be around. So that's what I took that tweet as. That's where we are. I mean, it's been the same fucking shit all season. Like, honestly, it's been the same thing. Drew and Barrett scared of the vets, up their asses. And Melody and Mallory will never distrust Drew and Barrett, even though they are the main reason their games have sucked this entire time. But Mallory and Melody are so afraid to play anyway. And then we have all this Karen energy throughout the house, too. Yippee.